Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode, a live episode.
Live and in person, not in
person. Well, yeah, we're in person.
These days we're in person.
Yeah, this is in person these days. But another episode of Marriage Matters. I am one of your hosts, Glenn Coleman, and I'm joined by my beautiful wife,
Tanya Coleman. How's it going, guys?
Yeah, and this is, for those of you watching for the very first time, this is Marriage Matters, like I said earlier. And this is a podcast where we talk about all things relationship, all things marriage, and all things alike.
All of the things.
Yeah. So, how you doing?
How are you doing? I'm doing pretty good. I'm doing great. We this weekend was pretty amazing.
Yes.
Another growth challenge weekend. So we're on the tail end of our personal growth challenge.
Yep.
And I'm super excited about what God's doing.
Yeah, man. So, and like we talked about this last week, I think we were evacuated last week. Man, this
was
is
it
crazy.
Last week?
That was last week. Yeah, last Sunday we were in Houston.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. But anyway, was it last Sunday?
I don't remember. At this point, days are running together.
Anyway, so we're on this personal growth journey, and part of that is going through these growth challenges. And like we said earlier last week, if it's something that you want to do, if you're looking to grow in your relationships as a father, as a mother, as in your career, whatever it is, growth challenge has been so phenomenal in our lives. As a matter of fact, what I'll do, I think I still have the banner up right here. If you go to thekitchentablecounseling.com, and I think it's under the events tab, you can go and find growth challenge. But I would encourage anybody who's looking to grow in any area of your life, it's well worth the time, effort, and the money. So
yes, we should all be looking to do that, right?
Yeah, I mean, if something is not growing in the horticultural world, is that right? Horticulture?
Good job.
If it's not growing, we consider it dead, and it usually gets dug up and burnt or something like that.
Absolutely.
So anyway, you should be growing. So tonight, what we want to talk about is I titled this podcast "Blame It on the Rain."
Blame it on
the rain.
Y'all remember that song?
Blame it on the star that didn't shine at night.
Okay, but I forgot that part.
Whatever you do, don't put the blame on you. So yeah, blame it on the rain. So the reason why I called it that is, I believe, this is just me, this is just my opinion. I think that in today's society, man, nobody wants to take responsibility.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of that happening.
Nobody wants to take responsibility. And, I've shared this story before on the podcast, but I'll share it again. I don't know if most of you don't know this, but Tanya and I, we have 2 daughters, but we do have a third child.
Yes.
We do have a third child. A lot of you didn't know this.
Yeah.
But this third child, his name is, it wasn't me. It wasn't me. I know that's very unique, but it wasn't me is our third child. Yes. And the reason why I say that is because a lot of times in our home, when stuff happens and we ask the girls, who did such and such, right?
Right.
Go to Beth. Who did such and such? Wasn't me. Go to Bailey. Who did such and such? Wasn't me. So I got to go to it wasn't me. Find out, why did you do this? Why did you leave the milk and the cereal on the countertop? Why did you do that? Wasn't me. But my point is,
why did you put the empty snack box in the pan?
Yeah, all of those things. So the point is, though, it's a lot of times we don't want to take responsibility,
right?
For anything, especially the things that we don't like in our lives. It's so easy, right, to blame that on someone else.
Right.
Why do you think that is?
Well, because sometimes it's difficult to see me in the scenario, to look at myself. Maybe that individual did have a part to play, but it's a little more difficult for me to look at myself rather than look at the other person.
Yeah.
And it's just a natural tendency to want to find fault in someone else instead
Yeah.
of myself.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I think it's just easier for me. It's easier,
Mm-hmm.
and it's tough for me to admit that the reason why my life may not be going the way that it's going
Mm-hmm.
is because of me.
Right.
I mean, that can be unsettling.
Mm-hmm.
That can be very unsettling. So that's what we want to talk about tonight, and we want to talk about how to turn that around and the power that comes with taking responsibility.
Yes.
Right.
Tremendous.
So I guess my next question is, how does that apply to marriage? How do you think that applies to marriage?
Well, I think it applies in several ways. Excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
One of which is that when we have conversations with couples, and it can just be friends, what have you, if we're working with a couple, oftentimes one or both parties will say, well, he always or
Mhm.
she always
Yeah.
does this.
Mm-hmm.
And so because she or he does this or said this, I just did this. So it's like I'm not taking responsibility for my actions, whether that be my reaction to something. I am blaming that on the other person.
Mm-hmm.
And so I always look at, not I, but people always look at other, most of the times, I mean, I say always, look at the other party's actions and behaviors, and they, like I said earlier, it's just easier to blame that person than for me to look at my own actions. And because we do life together in marriage, and when things don't go our way, then well, it's just easier for me to blame you.
Yeah. And for me, again, one of the scariest things
Mm-hmm.
was to realize that, even though, and here's the deal, guys, even though your life or your marriage, your relationships, whatever those are, right now may not be where you want them to be, and you may be blaming someone for that. And the truth of the matter is, they may have done some things
Sure.
to maybe cause that to happen. There's one thing.
Add to the scenario.
Or add to the scenario.
We do it together because
Right.
we're doing this life together, right?
But there's one situation that I'm thinking about in my life, and it was so easy for me to say, well, man, if it wasn't for this, this, and this, I would be further along in life, or I could do. But what I have to realize is, wait a minute, who made the decision to do?
Right. Who agreed to that?
And I'm gonna say this. This may be a little harsh, but it's truth. And I'm just gonna say it. But there's so many times I hear people complaining about their marriage and complaining about their spouse and what their spouse is not doing. If she would just, or if he would just, in my head, I don't ever tell them this, but in my head, I'm thinking, so you're the one that married this person. This was your choice.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. And I know that's kind of hard, but
it's
the
truth.
I've even heard some people say, well, he's just crazy or she just crazy. I'm like, you chose crazy. So, I mean, what does that make you? Okay, that was a little harsh, but,
all right now.
But it's the truth, man. It's the truth. It's the truth, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so we want to help you tonight learn how to take responsibility. And when you take responsibility, what you do is you take the power back.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it is in terms of there's this power struggle going on in your relationship, but you take the power back to be happy. There's so many people who live life and are in a marriage and they're not happy because their happiness is contingent on what this other person is doing or not doing, right? So when you take responsibility and you say, hey, I know that we're in this situation or whatever, but you know what? I made some choices.
Yep.
And if I can acknowledge that, if I can say, yeah, I made these choices. I remember I was talking to a really good friend of mine, and we were talking, and it was about his marriage.
Okay.
And he said, I made these choices, and I could just see the distress or the depression or just the hopelessness on his face, right? But what I told him was this: the great thing about decisions here's the great thing about decisions is you can make new ones.
Absolutely. I love that so much.
And
I
when you
love
take
that
responsibility,
so much.
right, you can when you take responsibility, it gives you the power and ability to make new
decisions.
Right?
Right.
And you know, one of the things that we talked about, well, I'm not gonna talk about it. We're not supposed to talk about much about this weekend.
No, we're not.
But anyway, so as a matter of fact, I see some of my Growth Challenge family just kind of join on. How you guys doing? So yeah, anyway, I'm getting distracted by the comments.
I know. We'll come back.
So
y'all
anyway,
stay on.
So one question that I'm learning to ask in any situation, especially in situations where I feel that I'm not living my best life. I'm living my best life. Okay, anyway.
Okay, yeah.
If I'm not living my best life or I'm not happy with the situation, one of the questions that I'm learning to ask myself is this: what is my part in this situation?
Absolutely.
What did I do? You know, so in your marriage, what did I do to get us in this situation? Because here's the truth. I'm learning this too. In marriage, there's my story, there's her story, and then there's the truth.
There's the truth. Right.
Right. And I've also learned that in any situation, no matter what that situation is, that usually nobody's innocent.
Right. Right. No one's 100% right.
Exactly.
You know, that we both have a part to play in the situation.
Right.
When you were talking, I thought about finances. So oftentimes when people have financial issues, there is, especially in marriage, it's true. There's a spender and there's a saver person in that relationship. But with our finances, we feel like that if I don't really pay attention to what's going on, if I avoid the situation, it's all going to fix itself. And then I've heard people actually blame the creditors or whoever for their financial situation, you know, and not really looking at my part. Well, I'm the one that's overspending. I'm the one that's not taking responsibility and paying my bills on time, or, you know, whatever it is. We feel like it's just easier to place blame in another place instead of taking the responsibility and sitting down, mapping out a budget and mapping out a plan.
And I think that's the missing piece a lot of times when you blame. We can use the financial situation, and I know even for our marriage, I said that kind of weird marriage. Our marriage,
you're good.
I had those feelings, you know, because I am more. I think in our relationship, I am more of the conservative. I want to save. I don't want to spend. You know, when you are more like, you know, if I have it and I can afford it, I want to get it, which is not bad. But I would get frustrated. I'm like, why does this woman keep spending all this money? You know, it's like, why does she just spend? But I wasn't happy. But I had to realize we never did that. We never sat down and said, okay, here's the budget.
Right.
We're gonna put this money here. We're gonna save this money. We never had the conversation, and I just thought, because you know, we both came from different financial stories, right? And so, you know, whereas, you know, you may have came up and it was like, if you have it, you know, you could spend it.
Enjoy your life, baby.
I grew up, you know. And even today, you know, my mother is on here watching.
Hey, mama.
You know, that's a saving woman, you know. And so as a matter of I don't want to make this too much information, but I'm on one of my mom's accounts, you know, just, you know, if she needs something, But so I can see sometimes that I was looking at her savings and one day I was like, okay, Mama Lena, okay, you doing your thing, you know. But that's how I was brought up. Is like you save, and you save more. And even if you want some things, you shouldn't get it because you never know.
Right. The rainy day is going to come.
Exactly.
Right. And so, I think just to kind of bring more clarity with that situation, the things that we had not discussed were the needs in the household. Like that's my role, is to take care of those needs. Yeah. And you didn't really get or understand or see those needs, you know, and that these kids grow, you know, especially when they're younger, you know, they wake up every other week wearing a different size, you know, so it's just like that's where a lot of that happens. And so having those conversations and creating clarity, it brings the power, it takes out the blame, and it brings understanding.
I always say it's really hard to hit a target when you don't know where the target is, or if you're blindfolded, or if somebody keeps moving the target. So I guess going back to that point is what is my role in this? Even like in the spending thing, what's my role in that? What was my role? So my role was I wasn't being clear with my spouse. I wasn't being open and honest with my spouse. So she had no idea that I felt this way, right? But I didn't want to say anything. And we talked about this before, but I was trying to keep the peace. I didn't want to rock the boat.
That's not.
But I would be so frustrated, and then I go into my withdrawal, and so now I'm not talking to her, and I'm not speaking to her. She's like, "What's wrong?" I'm like, "Nothing's wrong." But then inside is like, "Yeah, something is wrong." But then
it's on the outside too.
So my point is, in that situation, we both have to take responsibility for what's going on, you know, in our lives. So, so when you don't take responsibility in any situation, you are you're giving your power away. And again, when I say power, I'm not saying that, you know, I have more power than you. It's my ability to be happy, my ability to enjoy life.
Yes, absolutely. And because there's no peace on the inside. Like you said, in those moments you were dealing with some inner turmoil that you hadn't shared with me. So I'm out here doing my thing and living my best life, and I'm happy-go-lucky. And yet you're struggling on the inside, which puts a barrier between us because we're not really able to connect because you're having that issue on the inside.
Yeah. And then the other thing is, you know, the other thing that blaming never solves the problem. You know, so even though I'm blaming her for, like, we could be further along financially if you would just save money or stop spending money. But that never solved. So we're still in that same. You got what I'm saying? And it reminds me, you know, of the story of, you know, the fall of man was all about not accepting responsibility.
So true.
So in Genesis 3, right? You know, and when God came to Adam, he was like, it was her.
Right.
And then he was like,
it was that woman you gave me.
He was like, it was the serpent.
Right.
And then the serpent was like, my plan has worked.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
This is what I meant.
But I believe that if Adam would have just said, you know what, my bad, God, you did say this, you did, you know, I apologize. Because that goes such a long way. And I tell the girls that all the time. It's like, you know, I understand you don't like to be, sometimes it's a hard thing to own up to that.
Right.
But I know for me, when somebody comes to me, and I mean, that's what forgiveness is all about.
Absolutely.
You know, if I come to God and say, God, I messed up, here's what I did. He's like, hey, you know what? No problem, no sweat. And I think that's more valuable in relationships, no matter what relationships, or no matter if it's that a marriage, if that's a child to a parent, on your job. You know, one of the things that cooks my grits. That's the Christian way of cursing.
Right.
It cooks my grits.
Your grits. I got you.
But then one of the things that cooks my grits, especially at work, is when somebody does something and they don't own up to it. They don't own it.
Yes.
And I'm like, and they throw somebody else under the bus. You know, and even though a lot of times for me, I know this is for me, and this is something that I've been working on and I try to do, even if it wasn't fully my fault. I want to take responsibility for that, because when I put myself in a position now to be a answer to the problem. Does that make sense? Yeah.
So, and the other thing with accepting responsibility, and you talked about taking your power back, but when you do that, growth happens. You know, when you say, you know what, this is my fault. I did this, or I should not have been doing this. Whenever you take responsibility, you grow. Right. And in marriage, we grow as a couple, because what that builds is, again, connection. You know, I'm big on connection, and it also builds trust. It continues to to let me know that I can trust you, or let you know that you can trust me, because I'm going to say to you, yeah, I messed up.
Yeah. And that right there, you know, there's scripture that says the truth will make you
It will
free.
make you free. Mm-hmm.
But when you speak truth like that,
Mm-hmm.
it frees me, and it's when you're always blaming me for things,
Mm-hmm.
it puts me in a position where it's like I don't really want to hear what you say anymore.
Right. You shut
Because
down.
right.
Mm-hmm.
But when I hear you say, you know what, that was my fault,
Right.
that really opens me up to say, oh, okay, well, she took responsibility for
Right.
that. So it encourages me not to own up to my stuff.
Right. Mm-hmm.
You know?
Right.
You know?
It gives you the liberty to be free too.
It gives me the liberty to be
Mm-hmm.
free. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So the other thing is that true love takes responsibility.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, when you really truly love someone, and that's, you know, the ultimate example, right, is Jesus Christ.
Jesus,
you know, he didn't blame,
mm-hmm.
forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he was the ultimate example of taking responsibility. Mm-hmm. And you know, whatever the situation is, guys, we talked about this last week about mm-hmm. there's nothing that I can do to change timing, right? Mm-hmm. So if I'm blaming her, then there's nothing that I can. I lose all of my power in that situation.
Right.
But when I can ask myself the question, and I want you guys, maybe you need to write this down. Maybe write it on your mirror. Write it. You know, send yourself an alert ever so often. What is my responsibility in this situation?
Right.
What's my and even though you think that it's all your spouse's fault, I'm telling you, if you really would look at it, you know, it's what is my responsibility in this situation? Mm-hmm. You know, there's this guy I listen to a lot. His name is Dan Moeller, and he tells this didn't happen, but he said that, you know, in his heart he just said this, and it just really changed my heart. But he said, you know, if I came home and found my wife cheating on me, mm-hmm. he said, why in the world would I cry for me when obviously she's the one with the problem?
Absolutely.
And in that situation, mm-hmm. man, talk about
it's hard
taking responsibility when it's like, and we do that so many times, mm-hmm. and we hear those stories a lot in marriage counseling, you know, especially when it comes to adultery. It's like, well, it's all on the other person.
Right.
And I know that's a very, very hard pill to swallow, mm-hmm. but even in that situation, ask yourself, what was my role in that? Right. Was I available to my spouse? Did I, you know, push them away? Was mm-hmm. I, you know, always accusing them, or, you know, whatever? But look for what is my role in this situation? Mm-hmm. Get your power back.
Yep.
Get your power back in life. You had something you were sharing?
No, I was telling your children to come inside.
Oh, okay. You was texting.
You know, the street lights are on.
Oh, okay. I saw you down there. I was like, oh, she got something good, man.
No, but what I was thinking about that is when you take responsibility, you have to remember, okay, it's not just saying, okay, my bad, or yeah, I messed up, but also that the behavior changes.
Yeah.
You have to change what you're doing. You can't keep saying, yeah, I did that, I admitted I did it, because some people do that. They'll say, yeah, I did do that, and there's an attitude behind it. You are owning it in a negative way.
Instead I did that, and
exactly. You know? Instead of taking responsibility and changing the behavior, making sure to earn that trust back.
Yeah.
When it's lost. Yeah.
So guys, you know, we're gonna wrap this up. But you know, we just really want to give you that information, or that piece of that tip, or that trick.
There you go. He's back.
But take responsibility for your life. Stop giving your power away to other people.
Absolutely.
Stop allowing other people to dictate how far you can go, or what you can be, or what you can do, the type of relationship, the type of marriage, you know, you can have. And what I found is that when you do that, when you take responsibility, and like we said last week, I'm going to change.
Right.
I'm going to change. You will see that most times your spouse will come with you.
Absolutely.
Or the people in your circle will come up with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're in it together.
We're in it together, man. You know, and look, we mess up.
Yeah.
It's okay. Just because you mess up doesn't mean you know, and that's the thing, is like, if you're not messing up in life, I'm gonna say this and we'll end. If you're not making mistakes in life, I don't think you're trying hard enough.
Yeah.
I don't think you're dreaming big enough. And and for me, I'm going. I say we're gonna stop, huh? But I know for me, that's one of the reasons why I limited myself so much in life, and I didn't want to really just step out and do the big things because what if I mess up? But I wanted to do the things that I knew that I was good at. I wanted to do the things that I knew I could control because I didn't want to make the mistakes. I wanted to keep it safe, right? But you don't grow that way in life,
right?
And your relationship will never go to the next level.
Yeah.
So you're gonna mess up. You're gonna make mistakes in your relationship. You're gonna say things. You're gonna do things that are not right. Don't try to sweep it under the rug. Don't just own up to it.
Own it.
Take responsibility for it.
And
get your power. Change and watch your relationships grow.
Yes, absolutely.
You got anything else?
Nope, I agree with everything you said.
You agree with everything I said? Well, let me say some other stuff. See if you agree with. No, I'm just joking. So this is Glenn and Tanya Cole saying your marriage matters. We'll see you next week.